Hi, I'm Tiffany, and this is Towering TBR. I've seen that my subscription count has bumped up quite a few numbers in the past week, and I just wanted to say hi to everyone who's new and welcome. A little bit about me. I am chronically ill and disabled. I read pretty much almost all genres. But my favorite is sci-fi, and I have 2 cats that I love and who make appearances in my videos. This is the start of the second week for the Magical Readathon. If you haven't seen the first week, I will link it in the cards and in the description below. If you watched that, you know that I ended with still being in the middle of Finding Me by Viola Davis. Again, this doesn't actually count for any of my prompts, but I am a mood reader and I wanted to read it, so I am going to be working on that some more. Currently, I'm at the part where Viola is in grad school, and as an enrichment opportunity, she takes a trip to Africa. What she wrote about it was really beautiful, so I wanted to share that. In the Gambia, to have a child is the greatest blessing. When you couldn't, the belief was that God did not hear your deepest wish and had passed you by. The intent is to make as much noise as possible so God can hear you in heaven and pour down a blessing. The noise stopped, and I looked around at the faces of the women, smiling, laughing, screaming in manic desperation. They were trying to wake God up. I found that scene to be really powerful, especially as it relates to getting in touch with her roots and embracing and being proud that she's Black rather than view it as a limitation. I feel like this was a scene that kind of represented a turning point in her life, and it was beautiful. I'm going to keep reading that. However, this library book has to go back soon, so I'm going to be starting The Kingdom of Copper. I am going to be reading this for alchemy, the prompt of a metal in a title. I also am going to be starting my buddy read with Chattie from the Mad Chatter. I'll link her in the description box too. We're going to be buddy reading Of Women and Salt, and I am going to be reading this for Artificery, Start Your Book with a Snack. I've got some mustard pretzels that I'm going to start my book with, so that's exciting. And I will update you when I make some more progress in these 3 books. It's a little bit crazy, but I'm also thinking I may throw in some comics or mangas because I'm just really wanting to do so. So that may happen as well. Yeah. Hey, so it is day 11. I had some really bad health days again, so my TBR has kind of changed. I don't know if I mentioned, but I'm going for the career of Archmage, which in April has 6 prompts. I had picked out Kingdom of Copper as my alchemy selection, and it was due back at the library, so I wanted to prioritize it. But when I opened it, there was a glossary and family lineage trees, and I was just like, you know what? This is not the right book for me right now. So I took it back to the library, and I don't know what I'm going to replace it with. I have a few options. I'm just not really in the mood for any of them right now. So gonna put that off a little bit. I did, however, finish Finding Me by Viola Davis. This wasn't for any of the prompts. I couldn't make it fit, but I gave myself some space to mood read, which was good. Finding Me has a really strong start, especially her childhood and college years. I was really intrigued and really interested in what had happened. However, once she started working, even, as little bit pieces, it felt like it was more a list of facts. And so I got really bored during that time. And I even thought when I got to 77%, maybe I should just DNF this. This isn't fun to read anymore. This is just a list of her jobs, essentially. And I pushed through to the end because I thought, you know what? This has won audiobook awards, and I will say her narration is spot on. It is really good. And it almost had me feeling like it could almost save it. But not only is the part where she's working, where she's listing people she worked with and different projects, in all of it, she kept saying, everybody was great to work with. I loved everybody there. Nobody had big egos. There was no issues with any of the castmates or anything like that. And it just felt like no job is ever going to be that perfect. And I can understand if maybe you don't want to call out somebody, and so you maybe don't put that in. But it just felt really false for her to like. I felt like it was just a really shallow look at that part of her life. And, you know, at that point, she had gotten married and had a child. And I was like, those are huge things. Like, I would have been interested in that as well. Not to say I wasn't interested in her work, but she just didn't make it a story. It was just a list of facts. And I think that that's what I struggled with. In the end, I'm giving it 2 stars because I was actively not enjoying that latter half. So, I think I mentioned in my last clip that I was starting a buddy read with Chattie. We are buddy reading the book of Women and Salt, and I am using that for Artificery to start my book with a snack. So, I've read the first 4 chapters, or about 84 pages, of Women and Salt, and it is really good. I'm really enjoying it. We do have a family tree in this book as well, and we're focusing basically on these generations of women. It starts out really, really strong. The first line is, "Jeanette, tell me you want to live." And I just thought, wow, I'm instantly intrigued. Why might she not want to live? Who is this person to her? And, you know, I was immediately asking questions. Later on, it continues, "Tell me you want to live, and I'll be anything you want me to be. But I can't will enough life for both of us." And I just thought, that was really powerful. So the women are all kind of experiencing different issues and in like different time periods. Jeanette is in the current timeline. We also have a group of women that are not related to these women, but they are intertwined by different things. And I thought the writing was really beautiful. There's a woman in a detention center for being an illegal immigrant. And she says, "I don't know why I'm here, and I am alone, and I am praying to a God I'm not sure exists. But if she exists, she is surely a bird, surely a migrating bird doing battle. Surely she will break these walls." And there was a lot of bird imagery in there, and I don't know. The writing is beautiful. I'm intrigued with the different characters. The oldest in the family line, they are in Cuba, and we know eventually that they're going to move to the United States, but we don't know who in this line of women is the person to make that choice. And that's kind of what's happening, is we kind of get these little pieces woven together, and it kind of gives this overall story, or an overall picture of this family. And I'm loving it. I think it's great. So we're going to continue reading that. I did finally pick up a graphic novel. I read Beautiful Darkness, and I was incredibly intrigued by the art. So, it's this gorgeous art. This is like a fairy tale type story. I say story, but that's giving it more credit. These are random scenes that sort of maybe could make sense together. We're following these little people. It kind of reminded me of the Borrowers. Like, that's how little they are in comparison to humans. They, all of a sudden, their roof caves in, which I think learn is a corpse. And they were like living in a human, maybe? I don't know. It's very confusing. And there's sort of a fairy tale element at the end. But like, there's no story. There's no plot. There's just characters and pictures. The art is a 5 out of 5. I think it's great, but there was no story. So I cannot recommend this book. And I got 2 stars. So yeah. So I need to replace the Kingdom of Copper with another book that has metal in the title. but it might not be a priority this week. I'm going to be kind to myself and just let myself mood read, and we'll see what I get. I'm hoping for some more great books that I can talk to you about, because these last couple have been a bit of a dud. So, all right, I'm gonna end this now, and I'll get back to you when I've done more. Hey, so it is day 13. As you might have seen in my last clip, I started The Many Deaths of Laila Starr by Ram V. This is a comic about Laila Starr. She is death personified. That's her job, that's who she is. And one day she finds out that there's a human who is going to invent immortality. He has just been born, and so her job is made redundant, and she's given a mortal body to go to Earth with. It's kind of unclear, like, why she wasn't allowed to do her job anymore, just because the person had been born. They hadn't invented immortality just yet. So there are some rules and stuff that I felt like were hazy and I didn't quite understand. But basically, she's given a mortal body and is in India, and it's her life intertwining with Darius, the person who's going to invent immortality. And it just had a really sweet message, and the pictures are gorgeous. Like, I will insert some of the art because it was stunning. So this doesn't actually count for a challenge or a prompt or anything. It was just a mood read, but it was really enjoyable. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. I wish there had been a little bit more clarity about the rules, because people do continue to die. And so with her not being death anymore, that part was a bit confusing. But overall, I really enjoyed this. So I have been continuing on my buddy read with Chattie. Our book is Of Women and Salt, and I've read about 75% of that book now. I'm feeling quite conflicted about it, honestly, because we're getting these like slivers of people's lives and people in their family line, and then there's even a storyline of 2 people who aren't related to this family that are also included in the story. And it feels like it's too much. We're not getting enough of any one person for me to feel really attached. It sort of feels like a mosaic. We're seeing these little slivers of people's lives and how that may have changed someone else's life. And I feel like there are too many characters and not enough focus. I think it was a really creative idea, and the execution is just not doing it for me. Now, if the ending is really brilliant, I'll eat my words. If she manages to bring it all together, then cool. I would love that. I will say the writing is gorgeous. I've already shared some lines. It is really immersive, so that is nice. The next book I picked up was The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson. This is a middle grade fantasy that Chattie recommended to me. I will be able to use that for Conjuration, which is recommended by a friend, because Chattie from the Mad Chatter recommended this book to me. So lots of influence from Chattie this week, and I'm really enjoying. I should tell you what it's about. So this is based on the Baba Yaga myth. We're following Marinka. She is 12 years old, and she lives in a house with chicken legs with her grandma, who is the Yaga, which is this person who kind of helps souls move on to the next place to kind of complete the cycle. And Marinka is going to be that person when she grows up. And it's a fate that she really doesn't want. She doesn't want this life. She's incredibly lonely. Because the house has chicken legs, it can just up and move with no warning. And so she's finding it very difficult to make friends because they're not really in one place for very long. Something happens that kind of forces her into this role. And I'm really intrigued about what will happen next. So I guess when you're in a slump and you're in a lot of pain, middle grade fantasy is where it's at for me. This has just been fun and incredibly distracting from my life. So I don't think that one's going to count for a class either. But that's okay. The Of Women and Salt that I'm reading, I am doing that with Artificery to start my book with a snack. I already did that. So I should be checking off 2 prompts this week, Artificery and Conjuration. So I will update when I have more. I think tomorrow is going to be the last day of this week's vlog. I'll update you one more time. Hey, so today is day 14. As you will have seen, I read Chef's Kiss, and it was great. That was corny, but it sort of sums up this book. We follow Ben Cook and his friends. They all move in together after graduating college, and he is attempting to get a job that has something to do with his English major. But he's finding that everyone wants experience, and he's getting kind of really concerned because he needs to get a job. And so he decides to apply at a restaurant where he sees a sign that says no experience necessary. And we meet the owner of the chef, and he's very surly, and he keeps calling Ben like the wrong names. Like they all start with B, but he'll be like Bart or Bort. There were other names too, but I thought those 2 were funny. So anyway, they decide to train him and take him kind of like on a trial basis. He's going to train with each of the 3 chefs and learn how to make their dishes, and also they want him to perfect the dishes. Yeah, so he's working this job and he's really happy. He had already been kind of an amateur chef. He's got the hots for Liam, one of the chefs. And this is just a really cute, wholesome story. There's a romance. There's a really strong friendship group. I liked the side characters. Even though they were a bit two-dimensional, they were still funny and added to the story. So I'm giving this 4 stars. I think if you're a younger adult and maybe just out of college or getting your first job, this would probably have chimed with them better than it did me. But I still really enjoyed it, and the art is very cute, so I'll make sure to show you some of those. If you're looking for something that's like accurate about working in a restaurant, this is probably not it. They're hanging out all the time. They don't ever really show them working. And there's a tiny bit of absurdism in here. All I'll say is pig backstory. It was intriguing. I really liked that. This didn't count for a prompt or anything, but I have finished that. I have also finished Of Women in Salt by Gabriella Garcia, and I'm giving this 3.5 stars. I did like the ending. She did tie up some of the loose ends, and I really do like the writing. I did think it was quite beautiful, but I felt like the execution of her story was just not fully realized. She had so many threads, whereas I think if she had just focused on one person and it had included some of these other things as like side stories to give extra emphasis, I think I would have enjoyed it more. However, because her writing was so gorgeous, I am going to be keeping an eye out for whatever she puts out next. So I crossed off the prompt of Artificery. It's just to start a book with a snack. I also finished The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson. This was really cute. I liked the story. It's a traditional fairy tale of Baba Yaga, but there was a really interesting twist in this one, and I was really enjoying it. However, she's very vocal about the fact that she doesn't want a job of being the guardian to the dead. And she's constantly like, why can't I choose my own fate? I just want to thwart fate. I don't want to have everything decided for me. And she says it so much. It becomes really whiny and repetitive. And I get that, that's her motivation for doing all these other things in the story. But I think it's probably better suited to kids than for adults, because I just found that part obnoxious. But that will fulfill my prompt of, I think it's Conjuration, recommended by a friend. So I only have 2 prompts to go. Alchemy, which is a book with a metal in the title, and I haven't figured out what I'm going to replace Kingdom of Copper with. So if you have any good suggestions of books that have metal in the title, let me know. And the last one is, I don't remember, maybe Inscription? It's the book on the highest shelf, which is what I will be doing next week. So yeah, this was a pretty great week. I think I finally got some graphic novels in, which was really exciting. How is your April going so far? If you're participating in the Magical Readathon, how many prompts have you crossed off yet? Let me know what you're reading and if you have any suggestions for the alchemy prompt. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining.